it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today is the first video in my official Hunkydory design team capacity. Now, if you've been following me, you know, one, that I'm lucky enough that I got onto the Hunkydory design team, and secondly that I said that for each launch that I am participating with Hunkydory on, I will do a video post, and then all the other cards that I make on that launch I will post as photographs on Instagram. So what you need to do is go on across to my blog post. You will get to see obviously all the photos that go with this card, but I'll also put the photos from the rest of the launch on that post as well, so if you don't follow me on Instagram you still get to see them. You'll also have links to all the products that I used, etc, etc. So if you're on YouTube, and all you need to do is go to the paragraph below this video and click where it says show more, and it will have then a link that says corresponding blog post, and that will take you to the blog post that goes with this video. Okay, so that's all the information, so let's get on with the crafting. So for this card we are using the new Creator Shaker collection from Hunkydory. The one that I got was the Super Sweets and Cutie Critters. It includes the dies, the stamps, there's also some paper pad and background stamps, etc. So for this card I'm going to be using most of those. So we're starting off by making the card base. For that I'm using the Ink Me card, and I'm cutting it to 8 inches by 11 inches and scoring at 5 inches. This is creating a card that is slightly shorter on the front widthwise than the back, and I just thought that created a really cool effect. I then took some Hunkydory Adorable Scoreable in pink and peach, and I created a layer for both the inside and the front, and as you can see I rounded the corners on the all 4 on the back and the 2 on the inside edge on the front. Again, I just thought that added a little extra interest. Once those layers were made, I just adhered those to the front. I then created a further layer for the front using the Ink Me card. Then using some more Ink Me card and the Wild Mushroom Prism inks and the jar from the stamp set, I stamped onto the Ink Me card the lovely jar, just to create, this is starting the creation of our shaker card, and I just love a shaker card made out of a jar. I really was hoping that I got this set, because as much as I love both of the sets, I really loved anything that creates a shaker card with a jar. I just think there's so much you can do, and you'll see all the different cards that we made out of this set, and it just was a really fun set to use. So stamping that down, you can see it came out really lovely. It comes with the dies, as I said earlier, and you get a outside edge for the jar, and then you also get an inner edge. Now that's so that obviously you create your shaker window. There's no point having a shaker card if the inside part was just covered in card. So I used my Sizzix here and my magnetic platform, but I wanted to be sure that it really didn't move, so I did use a bit of tape just to stick that down. The next thing I needed was to use the outside jar only and to create a mask. So I used the Hunkydory masking sheets and I just cut out a mask. You'll see what I'm going to use that for later. Then we needed to create our acetate part for our window, and so for that I want to sandwich it between 2 pieces of card. I've got old plates, and if you put the die cut through with the acetate without any protection, you'll actually end up with marks all over your acetate. The other thing I would say is that acetate is quite difficult to cut through a machine, so make sure you go back and forth quite a few times, and having that extra sandwich actually helps because it adds a little bit of depth to it, so it helps cut through. I then used some of the red tape and stuck the acetate window to the white jar that we created earlier, and that created the front of our shaker. Then using the Ink Me layer that we haven't yet stuck down for the front of the card, I stuck down my mask, and here you'll see I'm just taking my jar here because I just wanted to check that I was happy with the position. And the reason that I put the mask there was because I wanted to use the background stamp and randomly stamp these 2 beautiful prism inks, the sort of peachy tone and the pinky tone, kind of randomly inking the floral background stamp here with that, and I wanted to leave a white kind of window that will go behind my shaker card, so that when I do my shaker card, I don't have the background stamp showing through the actual acetate window, and you'll see later why I needed it that way. You could of course have just put another die cut of a white card there, but I've just felt that I wanted to do it that way. And you saw there, then I peeled back the mask and you could see my little window of white. The next thing I want to do is prep my little shaker with the foam. This is to create the height, so that when you put your little bits and pieces for your shaker inside, you've obviously got some height. Now you need to take into account what you're going to be putting inside as to how many layers or the depth of the foam, whichever it is that you're going to need to do. Sometimes you can't get foam deep enough, so you need to do a couple of layers. Other times you just want to get a deeper foam. For this, it's just a really beautiful fine lines of foam, and it just is perfect. You want to create a nice solid lined edge all the way around, and then I'm just popping that to one side because I don't need that yet. Now you come to see why I wanted that kind of gap in the background there, because what I'm doing is I'm creating some stalks using these dotty lines, which I think were actually meant to be like sort of like this sort of trails of the butterflies and things that were on the actual stamp set, but I decided to use them as stalks, and you could bend them and move them and adjust them, so I thought that worked really, really well. Next, I'm going to be stamping out all of my flowers and my leaves, and I've got a couple of different colours selection here of the Prism inks for my flowers. So you've got the pink tones and the peachy tones, and then just one green. And I'm just going to stamp a whole heap of those on this Ink Me cardstock, and this will create just the outline, and then we're going to colour those in using the Prism brush markers. So there they are, all stamped out, and here I am just colouring them in with these beautiful brush markers. These are the new brush markers from Hunkydory, and they are so gorgeous. They're water based, so you can use them as watercolour pen markers as well, so you can use them like watercolours. For this, I just use them as they were, literally as markers, and I think they coloured in beautifully. I was really, really pleased. And this isn't even watercolour cardstock, this is just the Ink Me card, so I just thought it worked really lovely. And it's got two ends. It's got the brush marker end, but it's also got like a really fine tip end as well. And you'll see here on the little caterpillar, I'm colouring him in the green for the brush marker part, but then for his eyes, using a darker grey marker, I've turned it over and I'm using the fine end, and it works so well for colouring that in and just adding that little bit of detail to his eyes. The next job was to sit and literally just die cut all these elements out. I had a lot of flowers and quite a few leaves. I actually ended up changing my mind on the leaves. I actually ended up using the Creator Shaker paper pad that went with this, and I found a lovely bit of paper that had just kind of greenery, as you saw there, and then another bit that was kind of like, again, sort of leafy, and I just cut using the die cut only, just cut a load out using that, and I felt that that worked really well. Actually, I really liked the effect of that. Next, I just needed to stick my layer onto the front, because we're now ready to sort of start constructing the front and putting our flowers all on, and our actual shaker. So obviously I want to do that with this piece stuck to the front. Can you imagine trying to put that on after you've done the shaker? It wouldn't be ideal. I had an extra piece of white, because when I die cut the acetate, I used a thicker piece of the Ink Me card as one of the layers to sandwich it on purpose, so that I had an extra jar, which I then popped on the inside. I just thought it was a little cute extra. And then using one of the sentiments from the stamp set, I stamped using the Midnight Black ink, and I just thought, again, it was just a little cute extra to add. Now for my shaker elements, I'm taking these beautiful crystals. This was just something I had in my stash, and they're absolutely gorgeous. They're really, really sparkly, and I just felt that they would really look like water. Now normally you would probably create your shaker by adding the elements inside the actual bit with the acetate and the foam, and then you would stick your layer on top. But because we want it in such a specific position, it's much easier, I think, to add my shaker elements to the center here, which was another reason to add this white void, because I could see exactly where I needed to put my elements. So added those to the center there, and then take the backing off my foam tape and then carefully add my jar to the front of my card over the top of my little shaker elements. If you add them to the center, you won't get any bits sticking. You need to make sure they're to the center, because it's almost like a magnet. The elements seem to attract to the sticky parts until you actually get them stuck down, so you want to make sure they're right into the center. And then I'm just fiddling around, making sure that I'm happy with the position before I stick it down. And then because it's foam tape, I don't have to wait for anything to dry. I can then just shake it straight away, make sure there's no leakages. That's always an important thing, to make sure you haven't got any bits that are going to fall out. And the reason I really wanted to use these crystals was, one, they're so sparkly, but two, they look like water in the jar. That was my theory anyway. So the next thing, having cut out all these flowers and little bugs and things, was I wanted to add different heights to the back of my flowers here. So I've added a few with just the finger lift tape, which would make them flat, then a few with one single layer of foam, a couple with 2 layers of foam, and then just 1 or 2 with even 3 layers of foam. So it's just to create different heights. Now I don't take that last layer of backing off until later on, because I'm going to position all of these before I stick them down. I think that it is much easier to kind of put them into where you think you need them. I was quite careful with the colours, to make sure that, the 3 layers weren't all on the same colour, etc., and all the flat ones weren't on the same colour. I tried to make sure I mixed the different heights up as well as into the colour. Once I got them roughly in position, I then added my little leaves. I stuck those down, and then I just gradually stuck the flowers down, peeling the backs off, carefully putting them back into position. I started at the lower levels, at the flatter ones, which tended to be more at the outside, and then I did the next layer and then the next layer in height. And then I had saved myself a couple for the bottom of the jar there, as if they'd just fallen off and fallen onto the floor next to the jar, and a leaf as well, and then my little bug. And I just felt that it gave an actual level to the jar, so it looked like it was actually sitting on something as well. I then decided that it would just look really nice with a little bow, so I created a bow. I just tied it, and then I just put a little bit of finger lift tape that I rolled up and put it onto the back of the bow, and then I stuck that in position. I just thought that added a little something. It looked nice without it, but I kind of liked it with it. I just thought it added a little bit of, prettiness to it. And then lastly, the things I needed to do was just add my little bugs. I had my gorgeous little bumblebee who had a little bit of shimmer on him. I fiddled around for a little bit trying to work out where to put him, because I didn't quite want to cover things up, but I was trying to work it out. But eventually I kind of put him in amongst the flowers, as if he was going over to the flowers to get the pollen. And then I added the little butterfly who was just over the edge of the card, and I thought that looked quite cute as well. Just added that little extra interest, and that was it. The finished result, I think, just looks so pretty. And what I loved about this stamp set and this die set was that the variety of things that you could actually make with it. And do go on across to my blog post or my Instagram to see the other cards. It's definitely worth seeing, because it has also, you may have seen at the beginning, it has like sweets and things in there as well in the stamp set. So it's got flowers, little critters, sweets. So you've got such a selection of things that you can create. All right, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this first installment of my Hunkydory official design team in journey. You have of course seen the 2 application videos, but this is like the first official one, and I hope you've managed to catch the actual shows as well and seen some of the cards, not only mine but all the other lovely design team members cards on there as well. And if the other design team members have blog posts, etc., I'll link those in on my blog post for you as well, so you can take a look at those. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye. Who forgot to mention that love isn't always a walk in